I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Rock Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back. I am Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. Thank you guys so much for downloading this episode. Please take a moment and leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast from. It really helps me scale the show and get this out to those who may need it. Woo, man, I got an amazing show for you today. It's Friday, the weekend's coming up, and Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to present you with my episode, my conversation with Bonny Meyer, who is the author of the book Perfectly Paired. And for those who do not know who Bonny is, she's one of the co-founders of Napa Valley's most legendary winery, Silver Oak Cellars. And she had a husband named Justin Meyer, who was a legend in wine country. And their story is magnificent. It's a love story. I'm not a big fan of love stories just because I'm just, I'm a guy. I'm a bro, I guess. But I had to have her on because her story is not like most love stories. It gets a little spiritual, and I really am fascinated by that type of mysticism. And Bonny's actually the person who turned me on to Robert Monroe and his institute. So I thank Bonny for coming on the show, because that really turned me on to Robert Monroe and his work and his books and his story, which has opened my eyes to a lot of different viewpoints in the spiritual realm. And we talk a little bit about that here in this show.
After he died, it started out by my having some lucid dreams, which are dreams where we really are conscious that we're dreaming, and we're more active in that dream. And when I would awake, I would be really thrown into grief again, because here I was right with him, and then all of a sudden he's gone again. But I did find the experience of that comforting. And then a few months after that, a friend gave me a book by Robert Monroe. He started an institute called the Monroe Institute. And I ended up taking a course, their basic course. And I had some hopes that maybe after I take 2 or 3 or 4 of these courses that I would be able to see Justin as Robert Monroe had been able to travel beyond this state of consciousness into other states where he was on different levels, including places where we would commonly say that's where people go when they die. I was actually only in day 4 of the workshop that I took when I was meditated, and all of a sudden Justin was like, it seemed like his face was about 4 inches away from mine.
Oh yeah, this is the part where it gets good, but you're gonna have to listen to the rest of the interview to find out more. But Bonny and I we talk about so many different topics. We talk about virtual farming, we talk about love, we talk about vulnerability, a little bit about what Brene Brown meant by vulnerability and how we can apply it to our marriages and to our relationships. We also talk about regenerative agriculture and hydroponics, and we talk about how many more years that we have of the topsoil so we can farm and produce crops for the masses. And we talk about so much. It's really fascinating, and I really hope that you guys enjoy it. And for those who are listening to this the first time, my goal of this podcast is to help you guys be your superior selves. Be the higher consciousness that you truly are, not the ego, the one that thinks you are yourself, the I, the small I, the one that is more powerful than what you think you are, the one, the doubt in your mind that you cannot do the things that you want to do. That is a small self. That is the ego telling you that you cannot do something. The higher self, your superior self, is the one that's always quietly telling you, reassuring you that you have the power to go out and conquer your dreams, and that you can do it, and that if you keep pursuing your path, that eventually you'll get there. And all that loving support is a part of that. And that is the goal of the podcast, that bring people on, individuals that have trusted their superior selves, that have pursued their paths and are still pursuing that, but they want to share their stories. And that's why I've created this podcast, is to bring them on and help share their stories, so that way you guys can realize that you are not the doubt, that you are not the small I, that you are not that voice in your head that tells you can't do something because you don't think you can do it, or you don't have enough confidence. That ego is not who you truly are. And that is why you're listening to this podcast right now, is because somehow you've gotten here, some reason you're listening. And I hope to inspire you by all the guests that I have on and their stories, which they have inspired me 100%. And they help me be the best version of myself. And that is my goal for you. So I just wanted to say that. I feel like I haven't said that enough. I feel like people that come to the show, they don't really know my mission. That is my mission. I will try to explain that more in every episode. But I just wanted to say thank you for downloading, and thank you for taking the time, because I know you guys are busy. Everything that's going on in this world, you guys are great, and I really do appreciate your time. But before we get into the interview, I do appreciate your time. But please check me out on yoursuperiorself.com, on Instagram at tdowns80, on social media, Facebook. You can look me up, Trey Downs, DOWNES. Check me out, friend me up, and on Twitter at Downs Trey. So without further ado, here is my powerful, vulnerable conversation with Bonny Meyer.
Hello, this is Bonny Meyer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Bonny, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show. I've been really looking forward to this conversation all week. I just finished up your book, Perfectly Paired, which has a lot of different layers in it, and it's beautifully written, and I love it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that generous compliment.
So why don't we dive a little bit into the book? So it's basically a love story about you and your husband and how you guys met. And it's kind of like, it's fascinating because it's like, at the very first, it talks about how he died, but then you also talk about, it's like you skip a chapter, like you'll talk about his death, and then you'll go into how you guys met, and then you'll go into, pick up from where you left off and how you met, which is very interesting. You totally have that, you read the first chapter and you're definitely hooked, because you're not expecting to read that, unless, for somebody like myself who doesn't know your story, reading that account of how, what happened to your husband, Justin, or brother, Justin, it's very, very powerful.
Our relationship was very powerful. But it didn't start, it started out really as a friendship. And one of the things I talk about in the book is what a strong foundation for a relationship, a love relationship, and a marriage that can be. But most people who knew us would say that we had an extraordinary relationship. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is I don't want it to be extraordinary. I believe that all people, we all have, somewhere inside of us, we all have that ability, and we all deserve a powerful relationship.
No, definitely. I think the one thing you talked about in the book that really helps me out with my marriage with my wife is the vulnerability part, right? You got to throw yourself in that fire and be all in. in order for that love. Well, I mean, you love them and you married them for a reason, but a lot of people still, for some reason, hold back, right? Like they don't fully submerge themselves in the marriage. And I loved how you talk about that, like making yourself vulnerable and putting yourself out there. I mean, you put yourself out there in this book. I mean, talk about that. Like, did you regret putting all those feelings and emotions and stories in there at first?
I I actually knew that I had to be very vulnerable and intimate in the storytelling because my object was to help others be vulnerable and more intimate. And in a lot of ways, I figuratively wrote the book with my eyes closed. I pretended to myself like no one was going to read it. No one will ever see this. I'm just going to write what's in my heart. And so I did, and um, I I was really nervous the day the book came out, but probably a lot of people have those feelings too.
What was the reaction of people who read it?
Most people basically echo a little bit of what you just said, that that reading the book made them think about their relationships, opened up something for them, gave them hope, and the hope comes from a couple different places. One, hope that they can have a relationship, forge a better relationship, and some inspiration in that regard. Also, hope. My editor many times said to me that this gives me hope that when my wife dies, who I am so unimaginable, I just can't imagine her dying, my wife dying. It gives me hope that our relationship can continue. I won't be absolutely devastated and won't be able to go on.
Talk about that. Like how, like, so you talk about a section in this book, which I was fascinated with because I'm getting into this a little bit more with my spirituality, being able to, I think it was like a meditation thing or being able to raise your consciousness. Like, can you explain a little bit more of that and like what part of the, I think it was like you actually get to see your husband again on a different conscious level.
Yes.
So what is
after,
that?
After he died, it started out by my having some lucid dreams, which are dreams that we really are conscious that we're dreaming, and we're more active in that dream. And when I would awake, I would be really thrown into grief again, because here I was right with him, and then all of a sudden he's gone again. But I did find the experience of that comforting. And then a few months after that, a friend gave me a book by Robert Monroe. He started an institute called the Monroe Institute. And I ended up taking a course, their basic course. And I had some hopes that maybe after I take 2 or 3 or 4 of these courses that I would be able to see Justin as Robert Monroe had been able to travel beyond this state of consciousness into other states where he was on different levels, including places where we would commonly say that's where people go when they die. I was actually only in day 4 of the workshop that I took when I was meditated, and all of a sudden Justin was like, it seemed like his face was about 4 inches away from mine. I was just looking right into his eyes, and I was so surprised, and we embraced. And it sounds funny to talk about that, but in dreams we know that we can embrace people, and so in this meditative state. We embraced, and it was just so amazing. And then the meditation was over, and I was upset again, but I learned how to go to that place over and over and over again. And just like riding a bike, the more I journeyed there, the easier it became. Now the Monroe Institute is still offering these courses. I'm not sure about whether they're open or not open right now, but there are other ways to get there, I believe, too. And there's a book that I ended up reading by Christina Rasmussen, which there are some resources in the back of my book, and her book was called "Where Did You Go?" Her husband had died at a fairly young age, and she struggled like I did. And in her book is a how-to book on how to get into a meditative state that's not that difficult to connect. You know, have the clear intention that you're going to connect with a loved one who has died. And in some cultures, this is very common. In the Hawaiian culture, it's very expected and common that we connect with our loved ones, particularly grandparents. But in other cultures, it's in our culture in particular, we think that's odd or extraordinary, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think the Western culture is kind of, awakening to it a little bit more. Like the traditional religions, I think we're becoming more spiritual, and the idea of raising our consciousness and changing our consciousness so that we can be more in tune to our hearts and our spirituality and the other side. I think I am anyway. I am 100% in. But that's what I really, it's funny. I'm reading your book, and I'm like picking up on little things. It's just funny. It has like a sprinkle of spirituality, a sprinkle of, this and that. And then it's just mostly love. But the funny part was how, like when you described your story of how you met, like he was in, what is it?
He was a Christian brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were considered monks. So I was thinking monk, like Eastern spirituality, and then, the bald head and the orange robe. I didn't know like that was a Catholic, sect or something like that. But that had to have been hard. Like, how do you guys date when he's involved in that?
Well, you don't exactly. So first of all, there are three types of Catholic clergy. There are priests who often will run parishes. There are monks and nuns, and the monks and the nuns are very much like each other. They tend to be teachers. The Christian brothers are primarily teachers, and or run hospitals, or they have some kind of mission. So yes, that is the proper term. A monk is a male religious person who's not a priest. And so when I met Justin, brother Justin at that time, he was a monk. He was at UC Davis. I had just begun school, and I met him at his professor's home for a birthday party. I brought my guitar. I took my guitar out to sing happy birthday. The friend that brought me encouraged me to do this, and his eyes lit up. He brought out his banjo, and we just started singing at the dining room table. In fact, there's a photograph of that in the book there. And so we actually ended up playing music for 2 or 3 hours after that. So we became kind of instant friends, and we knew that, we like, wow, this is really fun. We continued to get together from time to time to play music in church, and then we got to know each other a little bit better. He started tutoring me in Spanish, And at some point, we realized we were in love with each other before the end of that academic year. But we also knew nothing would come of it because Christian brothers, like nuns, take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And that chastity part doesn't allow them to be married. And some Buddhist monks, I think, end up being married, but it's different in different arenas. And then we went through about 5 years of being deeply in love with each other and struggling and seeing each other sometimes and deciding not to see each other sometimes. And I think it really honed our character in so many ways. So that and we talked, we were so honest with each other. Most people don't date or don't start a relationship by trying not to, trying not to have a relationship.
Well, it's crazy. Like in the part in the book where, like he chose you, and he basically didn't have anything, right? Like I think he had a car, maybe some cash, but you guys basically had to start over. And he lost his position as like, I guess like the head guy at the what was it? The brother, I don't know, what do you call it? Like not the winery. The winery?
Yeah, Christian Brothers had one of the largest wineries in the country at that time.
So he loses all of that, and so you guys move forward with your lives, and you guys start over in Napa Valley. You guys build your, Silver Oak Cellars, and you guys basically, work your butts off and grow it to where it is today. But your story is so much more than wine. It's like, you guys are the example of what marriage should be, right? Like that vulnerability, that just, I don't know. Can you talk on that? Like, I feel like a lot of people, especially married couples today, like need to hear it. Like how do you create a lasting marriage?
I think there are a few things. Some of them are so basic, like kindness. You're just always kind. A lightness of being. I don't know that that's something I say in the book, but Justin and I both had a kind of lightness of being where when we would have a disagreement about something, although that was rare actually, but we didn't take these things too seriously. We didn't take ourselves too seriously. As long as I don't have big ego investment in something, in a position, whatever, it's easy to get over differences of opinion. And the vulnerability, so many people that I know of who are married, and they've been married sometimes for decades and decades, actually hide who they are from each other. When, on the inside, that one who we're trying to hide is so beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's 100%. Yeah, no, it's showing that person that, right? We're just scared, right? I think a lot of the times we're not fully in love with ourselves. So how can we show that to another person?
Yes, that's exactly what we're afraid of. We're afraid that we're not lovable or lovable enough. And so we hide from each other. Well, the real path to a phenomenal relationship is that, to actually show the other who we really are, to really open our heart to each other. Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability, and anyone who would like to explore more about that would do well to read some of her books.
Yeah, or drink some of your wine, right?
Yeah. One of the things I talk about it in the book, which I don't know, some people may think that I'm just crazy, but I really believe that our Silver Oak became a phenomenal success, way beyond what Justin and I had imagined. You know, when we got married, yeah, the sum total of our fortune is he had a dog and I had a car, and but I do believe that our love, our relationship, really infused our wine with a kind of a beauty that just was magical.
Mhm. Yeah, I love the title of the book, Perfectly Paired. Because of love and wine, right? And it's a beautiful cover. I love it. I have to. I guess next time I go to you know, the wine store, I'm gonna have to check it out. I don't know. I'm on the East Coast in Baltimore. Hopefully they have it over here. I mean, because you guys are national, right? Like you guys
Well,
distribute everywhere, right?
Silver Oak is sold in every state and many countries. I actually am not associated with Silver Oak anymore. Justin and I sold Silver Oak just a number of months before he died.
Mm.
And so my son and I produce wine from Meyer Cellars, and
Okay.
so I'm still in the wine business.
So you guys are nationwide too in every state?
No, Meyer Cellars is pretty small, but Silver Oak you can find.
Mm.
Silver Oak you can find.
I want to get some of
Just
that
about as
Meyer wine.
good.
You have a foundation as well, right? Like you invest your time and learning about how to protect the environment and things like that. And I think that's what it is in the book, right?
So I don't have a foundation. I have a regenerative investment company. And so I've taken all of the assets from the sale of Silver Oak and invested in them in ways that help restore or regenerate land, the environment, society, and people.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I'm actually considered a pioneer in what's been called impact investing. I'm considered a pioneer in that. And because I just thought it was the right thing to do and a more fulfilling way to invest.
So what types
than to invest in
so
ordinary.
you reinvest your money in projects that help with land preservation or land development, or what does that look like?
So I've invested money in actually a condominium apartment development locally because we need housing here. I've invested money into forest regeneration. So it's a fund that buys forests that's not doing well and then implements new practices that are more sustainable.
That's pretty cool.
And then they put it into a preserve.
I was wondering. I'm sorry to cut you off. The reason why I asked is because I've been reading a lot of Peter Diamandis's blog stuff, and he is a big advocate for vertical agriculture. And what that is essentially like you go into urban areas and you utilize some of the buildings there, and you can actually make them into like high tech greenhouses where you can control every variable in that plant's life cycle and create, organic products, organic crops, and then use less water. Like I think it's like 90% less water than actual farms, less pesticides, less herbicides, and continuously produce crops. Whereas some crops are seasonal, but the damage that we do, we don't realize we do on the soil and the water consumption and to the ecosystem is crazy. It's phenomenal. But these vertical agricultural farms are fascinating. The technology that's associated with it, the software and the hardware. Do you do much in that area at all?
That is fascinating. And That's essentially hydroponics,
Mm-hmm.
done in many different sorts of ways. No, I live in an agricultural zone. If you see through my windows, I'm surrounded by vineyard, and the technology. I would say the latest technology in agriculture is is the journey away from farming crops to farming the soil. And so there are ways that we have found now where we can help the soil be better every year instead of being more and more depleted every year. And we do not, we farm organically, but we do not, and we don't, we plant insectaries that attract beneficial insects instead of using pesticides, for example. And we plant cover crops that create a symbiotic relationship with the vines themselves. And so they actually help. We don't think of them as weeds anymore. They actually help the vines be healthier and help the soil retain more moisture. So one of the things in regenerative farming is every year the soil gets more and more capable of holding more and more water. Worldwide, we have about 80 years, it's 60 to 80 years of topsoil left.
Yep, 80 years. Yep.
Yeah, so it's really important that we start farming differently, whether it's inside buildings or whether it's actually out in open land. And the good news is that the farmers who really jump into this type of farming are rewarded many times over. Their crops are better. They're tastier. Their soil gets better. They don't have to use fertilizers. All of those things, and so they want to keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm from Southern Delaware, which is a very agricultural rooted community. And I think I just did some research in a paper on it for my business class. And I think it was like, I want to say 49, maybe not 49%. It's a high percentage of Delaware is agricultural land. And you're right, 80 seasons left of topsoil. And by 2050, there'll be 9 billion people as far as the world population. Right now, by then we have to increase our food by 50% to feed those 9 billion people. So we're definitely going to have to start thinking about, not the one-dimensional farming that we have now, but the multi-dimensional as far as buildings. Could you, and this is and I don't know if we can answer this right now, but could we possibly do vertical agriculture with vineyards, with the grapes?
No.
Vines
and fruit trees, things like that, their roots go down typically about 50 feet at least, and you can't grow something like that hydroponically. They also need seasons. So they've not been very successful growing vineyards in Hawaii, for example, because the seasons aren't the same. So there are some things that, yes, but actually hydroponics is really great for, I think, tomatoes and cucumbers and lettuce, and you want those things close to where people consume them. So I think that ways growing food in cities like that make a lot of sense for certain things. But no, they have to be small plants.
Yeah. No, I mean, you think about it, you grow as much as you want and then sell it back to the local markets. And now you're producing food for an urban area, a city, essentially. And think about, like, I was just thinking about this a while ago, is thinking about all the businesses that were affected by COVID and, that are not going to be utilizing those buildings anymore, that are, there's a lot of real estate businesses in New York, San Francisco, LA, that if we invest in this type of farming, I mean, that could be numerous opportunities for people, entrepreneurs, like I think I gave a a graduation presentation for some high school grads, and I was like, you have to. My one gift to you is research vertical agriculture, because I think it's definitely an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I think the bottom line for many of these things, Trey, is getting back to the primary subject of the book, is when you start from love, there are so many things that you can do, and love will guide you as to how to treat, the soil, how to treat each other. Love and intuition will help you figure out, well, what are the new business opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
and or love will help you think about, how do I feed my neighbors? How do I make it? I think there are things that people have invented that anyone with a home and windows can create a little hydroponic garden. So how can I help my neighbors be more self-sufficient and delight in what they can grow at home? So as long as we come from there, love and reverence and vulnerability to the fact that we don't know all the answers, some of the things we try won't work. But as long as those are our guiding principles, they'll take us to in fruitful directions.
Yeah, fruitful direction. No pun intended. But so your story is you have a very successful story, very filled with love, like you said, and great stories. How much of that is luck, and how much of that is, like, I shouldn't say luck. How much of that is just following your intuition?
I think there's a couple of things that are tied in together. That when I am open, I have better access to my intuition. And when I'm open and I see an opportunity, I will be more apt to follow that opportunity. And yes, there is synchronicity and luck in all of our lives. And if we're consumed with fear or worry or trying to figure things out, working hard to figure things out, we don't have as much access to what the possibilities and opportunities are. That makes sense.
Being open. No, it does. Definitely does. But describe being open a little bit more so people can take that home with them. Like, being open, what does that mean?
Let's see, if I'm open-hearted and you say to me, hey, let's start a vertical garden together, and my immediate reaction is, I don't have time to even talk about it. I've blocked off that opportunity. This may not be the great thing for me to do at this moment, but if I say, hey, tell me more about that, then I'm open and I can hear more, and I may decide that, oh, there's some part I can play in this, or now that I know more, I'm going to tell somebody else who needs something to do, and they will start one too, and then possibilities flow. So it's just having a generosity. I guess in that way, I mean, of openness. It's a type of generosity that I'm and a willingness to listen.
No, I love that, because then it's like the universe just starts giving you like little crumbs, right? Like little breadcrumbs about, what's next. Because a lot of people struggle with that. I think the common question is like, what is my purpose here? What is my role? And like, you're 100% right. Like, being open to opportunities. like it might not be right for you when somebody presents you with an opportunity, but being open to that and then like hearing them out and just kind of doing your research, and then it might lead you in a new direction that might open up other opportunities for you that you didn't even think about. Like the podcast for me was an opportunity for me to work on my speaking techniques and my interviewing techniques. And I've been able to meet so many interesting people and connect with some great people like yourself, and reading your stories. And you guys are like, I mean, all of my guests have been like my mentors, unofficial mentors. Like learning about you and your husband was very powerful. Learning about your, your concept of marriage. Like, I mean, it is a love story, which I don't usually read love stories. I'm not that type of guy, but I really genuinely liked this book because you are so vulnerable in it. And it is definitely a marriage that I want to mirror, in my own life. The communication, the love, the emotion, like it's just fascinating. It's crazy. But like you said in the book, and Brene Brown says, vulnerability. I was just telling my wife this the other day. I was like, we're better now than we've ever have been, because I'm throwing myself in the fire every time I talk to you. Like I'm letting you see who I am. And I think when we first started out, well, I didn't do that, because it was like, we're still trying to learn what marriage is. And we're trying to, we're playing house essentially. I mean, we have 3 kids, but it's like, you're just doing what society says marriage is, right? You're going to work, coming home, making dinner, cleaning up, going to practice. And then it's not until you start hitting the bumpy roads where it's like, all right, here's, we're going through some times, and that's where you really learn who the other person is. And it's like, you have some trials and you have some errors and failures, and it's like, you keep going and keep going. And, I just love the vulnerability part in your book.
Yeah, thank you. It is, yeah, it definitely is a key.
But I mean, going back to the book, because I'm really interested in the part, like, so you were talking more about the spirituality part of it, and connecting with Justin on that conscious level, like, and those methods, the meditation methods. Can you do that now? Can you raise your consciousness to where you can see Justin now?
Yes, of course. Again, it got easier and easier over time. But what I typically do now, Trey, is all I got to do is think about Justin and tune in, and I can feel him embracing me from behind. It's like this big. He was a big bear of a guy, and I can feel his hands embracing me and covering my heart.
Wow.
And yeah. So,
what do you say to him? Like, I mean, when you feel him, like, what do you say besides "I love you," which I feel like that's a given, right? Like, but do you speak to him and like, what's going on in your life? Is there always a phrase that you use, or what?
I don't usually speak in words.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If let's say you're far from me, and when our interview is over, I can think to myself, wow, Trey, that was a great conversation. Thank you. And I may not literally say that, I may not email you that, but I'm thinking it. And I don't need to use words to send you a message and to feel a connection with you.
Yeah, no,
Right?
it's
And
nonverbal, right? And the nonverbal communication, especially on that side of the world, and in between lives, you don't necessarily need to talk either. You have that.
So, exactly. So, yeah, it's not easy to describe from where we sit in our physical bodies, but yes, we actually already have a lot of nonverbal communication. You
Hmm.
know, you have a daughter, maybe she walks in and you give her kind of this look like, no, 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 I better, you know, you better do your homework or whatever the look
Get out of here.
is. And uh, so yeah, so we're not strangers to nonverbal communication,
Hmm.
and yes, I do. Generally, it's just a desire to be with him, just a desire that to be with him that takes me there. And there are times when I ask for help, ask for his help. Um, and I think just the same, you know, on a physical level and as well as on a spiritual level, we have to ask for help if we want help. And so I think asking for help or an idea or an inspiration is it's a really good idea. It's another it's a an aspect of vulnerability, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
definitely. Does he still turn that air dryer on?
No. No. Actually, I was living in I was living in a different house where that hairdryer was. But after about a year, he pretty much the hairdryer was quiet because I had developed a connection that didn't require physical electronic objects.
That's awesome.
But what you're referring to is after Justin died, he the day after he died or something like that, he spontaneously turned this wall mounted hair dryer on that he hated, and so that was a real indicator of what a sense of humor he had. He just hated that thing because his elbow would hit it and the nozzle would come off and it would start going, and he really didn't like it. But he also turned my daughter's stereo on, and he did other things, and it seems from stories I've heard that when people are on the other plane after they have died, electronics seem to be one of the easier avenues to communicate.
I personally think it's
So
like
we should,
the frequency of it all, right? Like the
yeah,
vibrational chord and things like that. I think it's just easier for the electronics to attune to that.
right. Yeah, people will notice flashing, flickering, and things like that. So it's important not to discount these things and say, "Oh, that didn't happen," or think that they need to call an electrician or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our loved
Awesome.
ones want to, they want to connect with us, and it's actually, I think it's important. A lot of people don't try to go out and connect with them, which is like just sitting home and hoping, your best, or by the phone and hoping your best friend would call instead of you calling them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I think it's important for us to be, again, another kind of openness, be open to connecting with them.
Hmm. I love
And
it.
and be, yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. What do you want your legacy to be?
The legacy having to do with this book is the reason I wrote it and told stories I never thought I would ever tell anyone,
Hmm.
um, is because it occurred to me one day that I could tell my story and in a way that it would open people's hearts to the possibilities, open their soul to the possibilities that we are more than our physical body, that relationship um, can be sacred, but it also can transcend death.
Mm.
And essentially, I think once our consciousness gets raised a little bit, we can't go back. And once my worldview, my view of reality spins, it can. And that's my hope. Because the love story that some people will pick up because it's a love story. Some people will pick it up because it's about a winery and a famous wine. People that would never pick up a spiritual book or never pick up a book about relationship would never pick up a book that explores grief. And so so that's my intention for this.
That's amazing. I loved every bit of that. Her name is Bonny Meyer. She is the author of Perfectly Paired. And you have to go out and get this book because it's amazing. It's about opening up to vulnerability and fully throwing yourself in the fire with your spouse and coming out on the other side a lot stronger, a stronger connection, stronger love, and a happier life. So Bonny, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you for sharing your stories in this book. I know how hard it must have been to write it, and I definitely enjoyed it.
Thank you, Trey.
I want to say thank you to Bonny for joining the show and hanging out. And I want to thank you, the listener, for taking the time to hang out with me and download and just hanging out and being a good audience. Like, you guys are always supportive and you guys are just amazing. Thank you guys so much. Please leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast from. Again, it helps me scale the podcast. It helps me get this out to those who may need it. Please go over to yoursuperiorself.com and leave me a message over there. It sends it right to my email, so I will get every single one of those. Some of you guys have expressed some pretty amazing stories, and we've connected, and I do appreciate that. Follow me on Instagram at tdowns80 and on Twitter at downstrey. Guys, this has been amazing. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you later.